Okay, hopefully that intro is slow enough to scare away the TikTok children. So another year has come to an end. I know this because now I have to sleep under 5 blankets to not die in my sleep. And now it's time for the mandatory annual video where I talk about the stuff I made this year. I made a lot of games and a lot of other things, so let's just get into it. I want to start this off and talk about what I wanted to do this year before we see whether or not I actually did that. In 2021, I mostly made too much stuff, and none of it was super great, and I ended up burning myself out. In 2022, I tried to make something too big and burnt myself out. So this year, I wanted to make a fair amount of smaller things at a reasonable pace. I'm proud to say that this was my first year of doing game dev where I did not burn myself out. So that's nice. Anyways, let's just get into the games. The first game I made in 2023 was a little game I called Boomerang Boy I made in January. The game was a small, high-score based game made in less than 3 hours for the TriJam 201 under the theme of You Got One Shot. Because originally you were going to have a gun with 1 bullet that I later replaced with a boomerang because, I don't know, Australians are funny. The game actually won the game jam, mostly due to the person in first not meeting the 3-hour deadline. People also really liked the sound effects because they were bluntly just stupid. Don't you just love me screaming? It's so much fun. The game is pretty decent for being made in 3 hours. Despite being a small, fairly insignificant game, it by far had the biggest impact on my output for this year for reasons that you're about to see unfold. The next game was truly my magnum opus, Lil Robot Game. The game was made in February for the G-Develop Jam 3 under the theme of separation. The game did fairly well and was really fun to make. Basically, you're a little robot who's trying to find its lost parts that it's been separated from. Then you go through a little world which is effectively a very small Metroidvania. I enjoyed working on the game so much that throughout the rest of the month, I updated the game adding new collectibles, better lighting, and a small new area and ability. Currently, I'm working on another expansion to the game, adding a new area, so that'll be cool, I hope. Cubic Heist is truly something. The game was made for the speed jam in March. Not because I saw that there was a cool jam happening, but rather that a guy called AckingYT was streaming work on his game for the jam. There was an hour left, and I didn't have my computer, rather I only had a school Chromebook. So jokingly, I routed G-Develop through a proxy and made Cubic Heist in 1 hour because I'm insane, I guess. The game is very, very, very bad. All you do is run from lava, try to get a good time. But the lava basically forces you to always get a time from 12 to 15 seconds, meaning that you can barely even speedrunning it to find the entire point of the jam. So basically, the game's bad and stupid. Next, I made something that wasn't a game at all. It was the first of 2 experimental videos this year, and I wanted to try and make a video that wasn't linked to a game, so I made one talking about how important feedback is. The video is fine, though in retrospect, it's not that entertaining, but it's not awful. The main issue with this video was it had a decent script and recording, but the actual visuals were pretty lackluster. This video is what eventually caused me to work more on my visual style when it comes to videos, expanding beyond my PNGs to a real human being. The next game I made was Die or Die for the TriJam 212. This game was made entirely on stream and just a silly little game I made in 3 hours. Damn. I made a lot of games in 3 hours this year. Anyways, the game is pretty decent. You simply have to dodge the pizza or you die. Hence the name, Die or Die. To get points, you must eat broccoli, which means I've actually made 2 games about broccoli, which is kinda weird now that I think about it, but nonetheless, it's just a basic high score game, but much like Boomerang Boy, the sound effects are pretty silly. The next game I made was called Pizza Rush, which is actually made purely for the purpose of a video. This is my first time working with some other creators on a video, so it was pretty interesting. Within the video, fellow creator MangoWorks and I had to make a game in 3 hours. You know, another 3-hour game, to see who can make the better game. Then we had Heavy from 8x8 Games to judge the 2 games, and that the experience was interesting. I think what resulted of the competition was lovely. What I would consider a good video, and a pretty decent little game that I wouldn't have made otherwise. It's just that it can definitely be pretty frustrating having to deal with other people. I'm a fairly scheduled person. My calendar, it's like my lifeline. So when I set some deadlines for myself and the others, they push very, very, very close to those, I can definitely get a bit miffed about that. Especially when I have to remind them to get certain things done consistently so the entire thing can actually function. There's a lot of benefit to doing something like this, but there's a reason I don't do things like that too often. So basically, in layman's terms, I hate people. But let's talk about the actual game, shall we? Pizza Run came from the theme of combining 2 incompatible genres. So the game is a weird top-down platformer speedrunning thing that's actually decent. The goal is for you to get the pizza to the house as fast as possible, adding a bit of speedrunning aspect to it. You do this by using your jetpack and by avoiding spikes. It's definitely one of the games of all time. Next up is by far the greatest game I've ever made. No questions, really. That's sarcasm for the socially slow, by the way. Twin Epic Adventure was made with the idea of how intentionally bad can I really make something. I didn't want to just make a bad game. I wanted to make something designed to make the game as unplayable and as BS as physically possible. And I think I did pretty well. Plus, watching people play this thing was hilarious. And I'd watch the video about that game just for that. But yes, Tim's Epic Adventure is awful. You start the game with a hellscape for the dyslexics proceeding into the weird glowy garbage green world, full of fantastic sound effects.
Wow! Wow!
Funny faces, and controls that randomly change. Oh yeah, your jump button just kinda randomly changes, and the jump height also randomly changes, making the game pretty awful to control. And because of that, as far as I'm aware at least, to this day no one has beaten it. I'd say I did pretty good at making an awful game. Oh yeah, the game was made in under 3 hours. Now it was July, so it was time for the GMTK 2023 Game Jam. Because as a game dev YouTuber, I am legally obliged to participate in this Game Jam every year. The theme this year was actually good. So naturally, I came up with a great idea that never came to fruition because I only had 1 day to make the game. So instead what came was Reverse Rolls. Reverse Rolls is a little high score game about smashing some rolls made in about 3 hours. The game, while simple, does exactly what it needs to. It isn't groundbreaking, but it functions. It is a good little game jam game. Now, logic would dictate that the 3 weeks that Bandcamp took up of my life was a time for no game dev or video making because I'll just be too tired. Yet, what I did makes me question my sanity. Bandcamp was cancelled the second Monday due to construction contaminating the water supply, so I actually had a Monday to myself. So naturally, I did my second video experiment of the year. In my video talking about reverse rolls, I introduced the green screen into my legendary setup, and I wanted to mess with it more. Thus came a video with a lot of charm and much cringe. With an abundant lack of things to talk about being an oddly rainy day in drought season, I decided to talk about scope creep and burnout under the metaphor of a monster in some old creepy building. The poor acting, it just hurts my soul. Though I must admit, the video isn't awful. This was my test of the green screen, and I definitely do like it, though I'm still messing around with it to make it something that I'm super comfortable with. Within that span of Bandcamp, I also participated in the Ico Jam, making Cosmo's Cosmic Adventure in a mere 3 hours. Okay. I just need to get this off my chest. But 7 of the 10 games I made this year were made in under 3 hours. My life this year has been busy, but the serious lack of dedication this year has been frightening. Like, it has been so hard this year for me to just make something, no strings attached. It's always in a stupidly short amount of time, or it's for a video, or it just doesn't happen. The only real exception of this has been Lil Robot Game, and wow, that was what I enjoyed working on the most this year. Absurd, I know. There's one thing to take away from this: push yourself. I made stuff this year, but I never pushed myself this year to actually make something interesting with thought and time in it. And whenever I would try, those projects would simply die a short 3 hours later. Anyways, Cosmo's Cosmic Adventure is a nice little game made for the Ico Jam. While yes, it was made in 3 hours, the creation of the game was very laid back and resulted in a cute little collectathon platformer. The one thing people definitely loved about the game was Cosmo the Star. He's just a little guy. Of all my games this year, definitely the cutest. Something else that was pretty cool was the video talking about the creation of Cosmo's Cosmic Adventure. Got to feature Icoso, who made the game jam the game was for. The video was definitely one of my better ones from this year, so it's one of the few I'd actually recommend watching. And the overall process of making that and the game and everything to do with it, it was a highlight for my year. My next main project was not a game nor a video, but rather my own game jam called the Olive Jam, which did really well despite what I thought it would. My little game jam managed to get a whole 65 people to join, and 13 whole entries, some of which being very well made. Especially the winner of the jam, Give Us This Day Our Daily Bread, which I don't even need to explain to you to see why it won. The game jam was by far a success, and I will more than likely do another game jam again. And it's not happening in September again. Like, dear God, my schedule is too busy in September for me to stress over running a game jamming while I'm out on the field from anywhere from 8.5 hours to 2 days playing my saxophone. Marching band's great, and all, but like, sometimes I just can't. Next up was my last main game for the year. A time when I made a horror game and called it Lost because I couldn't think of a better name. Mostly for the purpose of making a video for Halloween, I created a basic maze horror game, filled with jump scares, dark hallways, and the color purple. Like, a lot of purple. Also, and spoiler warning by the way, so skip ahead if you don't want spoilers, I guess, but the jump scare is just Monica from Doki Doki Literature Club because there's literally nothing scarier than anime girls. But ending off with Lost just did not feel right. I really wanted to cap this year off with something cool, something I would be satisfied with. At first, I thought about making a game for Christmas, or just winter in general. But that simply didn't happen with finals and whatnot. But then something better came to my mind. I wanted to catalog this year and what I made in a way that could do it more justice than this stupid video. So, I made what I'm calling a digital museum that you can walk through as a little olive and see a bunch of stuff I made this year. Clips from development, sketches of things, and all the songs I made in the background, as I've been messing around with making music more. And just my insight talking about what I made. It's nothing mind-blowing. But I think that it's a cool way to document what I made this year, which is really a lot. This year's been phenomenal for me. It really has. Even with making things in such a short time this year, it's been a year of change for me. I've done a lot of new things this year. Met a lot of cool new friends and made a lot of cool new things. That being said, there were some obvious things that I did not do well in. Firstly, rushing creation this year was often. Creating Boomerang Boy was a joy. Being able to make something for fun in such a short, relaxed time frame, it was so nice. So nice, in fact, that I continued it into oblivion. If 2021 was the year of too much, and 2022 was the year of too big, then 2023 was most definitely the year of too fast. Ideas were not being given the time that they needed, and if they couldn't be made fast enough for that dopamine rush, then they just never came to fruition. Also, I wasn't making games to be games, but rather ploys for videos. This year's been one where I've become fully entranced by the process of making a video. From the scripting to the final little edit, I've become so invested, yet at the detriment of my game. I want to conjoin two of my passions together into something that I can be proud of, rather than some lopsided scale of effort. Making games is hard. Making good videos is also hard. But my hobby is game development, and this channel, no matter how much I love it, is a way of expressing that love of game development. And I can't do that if video schedules and YouTube analytics become the priority. Because if I wanted money, if I wanted numbers, I would just make daily videos on my gaming channel. But no, that's not what this is. Not what it's for, rather. So, for next year, I need to strive to be reasonable and attempt balance. It's unbearably hard to ignore numbers and statistics, especially as I love numbers, but it's for the best. I just want to create things. I don't need some restrictive schedule, and I don't need to rush things for those numbers. I just need to make things. Because honestly, I probably won't even ever have success on YouTube. Likely, I won't even hit 1,000 subscribers. So what I need to do is just create, doing what I love. And looking ahead, I am cautious. Yet, I am oddly optimistic for the coming year, with it only being a few steps away from what I'll make next.